Celebrating the 60th Trade Day, President Yoon vows to do more of his sales diplomacy to support exporters and raise young people in the sector. South Korea's economy expanded by 0.6% from July to September on the back of recovering semiconductors and exports. In the Middle East, Israeli forces rapidly advanced into southern Gaza, having mobilized tanks and cut off telecommunications in the besieged area. It's December 5th, 2023. This is News Center. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Min. Celebrating 6 decades of South Korea's trade-driven development, the South Korean president today attended an annual Trade Day event held in southern Seoul. He called for the need to foster new ways for the country to grow in a qualitative way. Correspondent Woo Soo-young begins our coverage.
President Yoon Suk-yeol has pledged to level up support for South Korea's export firms to expand in the global market, as he forecasts continued disruptions to international trade and supply chains. Marking the country's 60th Trade Day in an annual ceremony on Tuesday, Yoon stressed the need to create new avenues for growth as the export-dependent economy faces a rapidly changing world shaped by competing national interests and technological shifts. Citing numerous risks such as the weakening of economies, supply chain disruptions and geopolitical conflicts, he said the Korean economy must overcome great challenges once again. Having met with over 90 heads of state around the world in 150 summits, as the self-professed #1 salesman of South Korea, he pledged to back more free trade agreements and efforts to diversify products and services. The president also promised to nurture the growth of small and medium-sized firms along with young business people and scrap regulatory hurdles.
새로운 주력 수출 품목을 키우기 위해 세계 최고 수준의 초격차 기술 개발과 상용화를 위한 R&D를 최대한 지원하겠습니다. 그리고 2027년까지 서비스 수출 분야에서 세계 10위권 진입을 목표로 콘텐츠, 관광, 금융, 보건, ICT 등 서비스 분야를 제조업 수준으로 키우겠습니다.
Amid the slowdown of global trade at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, followed by war in Ukraine and geopolitical tensions in the Indo-Pacific region, South Korea recorded 13 months of negative export growth until a rebound in October this year on the back of greater demand for chips. In tackling the challenges ahead, Yoon reflected on the past decades of export-led growth for the country, which first recorded $100 million in 1964.
수출은 늘 우리나라 성장의 원동력이었습니다. 좋은 일자리의 원천이었습니다. 따라서 수출 진흥이 곧 민생입니다. 우리 함께 다시 한번 위기를 돌파하고 자랑스러운 대한민국의 무역의 새 역사를 써봅시다.
According to Korea International Trade Association, the country is forecast to record around $630 billion in outbound shipments this year, down 7.8% from 2022. However, next year, exports are likely to get a boost from higher demand for IT products. Yoon on Tuesday also presented various awards, including the Order of Industrial Service Merit to top export company heads, including Hyundai Motor CEO Chang Jae-hoon. Prior to the ceremony, the president viewed displays of major export items and documents by era, such as the first TV sets and vehicles produced in South Korea, and the first comprehensive export promotion policy in the 60s, which fast-tracked the nation's economic development. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The nation's economy expanded 0.6% in the third quarter of this year, boosted by the chip industry and exports. An Sung-jin has the latest findings.
South Korea's preliminary real gross domestic product for the third quarter of 2023 has increased by 0.6% compared to the previous quarter. Data from the Bank of Korea on Tuesday noted that this figure was consistent with the advanced estimate released in October. The increase in the third quarter was mostly driven by a recovery in the chip industry.
Exports and production saw an on-quarter increase for 2 consecutive quarters, and as memory chip prices stopped falling, it can be said that the semiconductor industry has entered into a recovery phase.
This helped pull up the manufacturing sector, which grew by 1.4% as production for computers, electronics, and optical products rose. This also pushed up exports by 3.4% on quarter. Private consumption also saw a 0.3% increase as spending on food services, accommodation, and cultural activities increased. The quarterly GDP growth rate for this year has maintained a similar rate of increase, lingering above the baseline of 0%. Meanwhile, real gross national income increased by 1.6% in the third quarter compared to the previous quarter. Although the net factor income from outside of Korea decreased, as the terms of trade improved, the GNI saw a larger increase rate than real GDP. The Bank of Korea issues its preliminary quarterly estimates on the country's real GDP and income within 70 days of the end of the quarter, with the finalized data expected to be issued within the next year and a half. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Consumer prices here in Korea accelerated 3.3% in November. Inflation has slowed from the month before, but it's been hovering above 3% for the fourth month in a row. Park Go-nu explains.
South Korea's consumer prices went up again on year last month. According to data released by Statistics Korea on Tuesday, the Consumer Price Index, a key gauge of inflation, rose 3.3% year-on-year in November. That was the fourth consecutive month South Korea saw a jump in consumer prices of over 3%. But compared to the month before, consumer prices fell, mainly due to lower gasoline prices. Improved supply of agricultural products, thanks to favorable weather in November, was also a factor that pushed consumer prices down on month. However, sectors including service, agricultural goods, industrial goods, and energy all saw price hikes compared to November 2022. In an emergency economy meeting on Tuesday, Finance Minister Cho Hee-dae discussed ways to deal with increasing prices, but added Korea's consumer prices are stable compared to other regions including the US and EU.
As unstable conditions, including oil prices and the weather, continue, we will do our very best to keep up with special policies to stabilize livelihoods in terms of consumer prices.
The minister also said that the government will strengthen support, particularly for agro and livestock prices, which are still high, with larger discount and cashback schemes until the end of the year. Cho also spoke about ways to relieve the burden of energy payments, including tripling the money back in a gas fee cashback program and boosting energy-saving campaigns more widely. Park Go-nu, Arirang News.
South Korea's finance minister nominee Cho Sang-mook has pledged to create a dynamic economy. During a press conference today, Cho said that a dynamic economy was necessary to achieve sustainable economic growth. He called for continuous scientific and technological developments, deregulation, and structural reform to create such an economy, which he dubbed as the key phrase for future economic policies. Che, a former chief economic advisor to the president, will double as the deputy prime minister if he succeeds Cho Kyung-ho, the incumbent, who is expected to step down to run in the general election next April for a National Assembly seat. Amid delayed urea imports destined for South Korea from China, sources now suggest a curb in shipments next year. Against this backdrop, Beijing has reportedly expressed willingness to continue its supply chain cooperation with Seoul. Moon Hae-ryun has more.
On top of recent delays of urea imports destined for South Korea from China, there could also be a curb in shipments next year. According to China's Nitrogen Fertilizer Association on Tuesday, its biggest 15 urea-producing companies, including Sinochem and CNAM PGC, have agreed to cap their exports to 944,000 tons in 2024. The NFA stated that urea shipments from China will come to a halt until the first quarter of next year, leading to the possibility of a reduced supply to South Korean firms. Chinese media have also reported that urea exports have been temporarily suspended and that the supply will decrease significantly before Chinese New Year's Day. This comes following reports from Korean companies that there have been disruptions in their ordered urea supplies passing through Chinese customs, which was confirmed by the South Korean government. The chemical is used as fertilizer in farming and is a key fluid used to reduce emissions from diesel vehicles. More than 90% of urea used in South Korean diesel vehicles in October came from China, and between January and October alone this year, urea imports from China totaled nearly 3.4 million tons. Seoul's Trade Ministry consulted with Beijing over these delays and reported that they were the result of a tight domestic urea supply rather than having a political background. Chinese authorities reaffirmed this message by expressing their hope that supply chain cooperation between the two countries would continue smoothly, adding that it would seek a solution to customs clearance issues. The two countries' trade authorities also held a joint committee meeting on Tuesday to speed up negotiations for the second phase of the free trade agreement. Urea prices hit a 2-year high in China last month, and concerns have spiked over the possibility of a repeat of the 2021 supply shortage when China halted all urea exports. The South Korean government reassured domestic firms, saying that there was currently enough urea in stock to last around 3 months. They will also be seeking ways to diversify import channels. 문혜련, Arirang News.
South Korea and the EU have expanded and reformed its original vice-ministerial-level industrial policy dialogue so that it could also discuss supply chain cooperation. The first South Korea-EU supply chain industrial policy dialogue was held on Tuesday with First Industry Vice Minister Chang Yong-jin and Kirsten Yorna, a Director General at the European Commission. Discussed were ways to deal with the global supply chain crisis and industrial technology leaks and ways to cooperate on the supply chains of batteries, eco-friendly cars, and chips. During a summit in May, South Korea and the EU had agreed to broaden their dialogue. A set of initiatives was unveiled today to change the way South Korea treats and views mental health to halve the country's already high suicide rate within 10 years. It'll encompass more comprehensive aftercare and more proactive measures. Cho Soo-young with the details.
With South Korea ranking first for suicide rates among the OECD countries last year, the Ministry of Health and Welfare has unveiled new initiatives that aim to better deal with mental health issues. President Yoon explains that the plan is all-encompassing.
특히 저출산 시대에 국민의 정신건강 문제를 해결해서 개인의 역량과 삶의 질을 높일 때 국가 성장을 견인해 나갈 수 있습니다. 정부는 이제 예방치료 회복에 이르기까지 전 과정의 지원 체계를 재설계해서 정신건강 정책의 패러다임을 획기적으로 바꿔 나갈 것입니다.
To improve old mental health policies which focused on after-the-fact treatment and not on prevention, the new approach is more proactive and highlights 4 key tasks. Firstly, the government aims to build a system that's integrated into daily life. This involves launching mobile mental health checkups via the messaging application KakaoTalk and integrating the suicide prevention emergency hotline under a brand new number 109. They also plan to increase counseling support for young people at universities and in workplaces. Secondly, there'll be swift and continuous treatment and management of severe patients. The government also will increase financial support for outpatients care by keeping in touch with those who have had severe mental health problems. As for the long-term strategy for people with severe mental health issues, there'll be better housing support for economically independent living. They will also be officially recognized as a socially vulnerable group, and more people will be eligible for medical insurance, even if they have a record of mental health issues. At the moment, some insurance companies don't offer cover to such people. Lastly, they will improve awareness of mental illnesses to dispel prejudice. Efforts will be made through nationwide campaigns and university club activities so that mental illnesses are seen in a similar way to physical ailments. The Minister of Health and Welfare Ministry Cho Hee-dae says that with bold investments in mental health care, it will build a society where everyone can integrate. Though a specific start date hasn't been revealed, though these four main strategies, the government plans to provide psychological counseling to 1 million people by 2027 and reduce the suicide rates by 50% within 10 years. Cho Hee-dae, Arirang News.
The National Assembly began a two-day confirmation hearing on Tuesday for Cho Hee-dae, the nominee for Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Cho, a judge with over 30 years of experience, had previously served as a justice on the top court for 6 years. The ruling People Power Party is calling for a swift approval of the nomination amid the prolonged vacancy of the position, while the main opposition Democratic Party is calling for a thorough inspection. The nomination requires a majority attendance of lawmakers at a plenary session and then a majority approval of those in attendance. President Yoon nominated Cho back in November after the appointment of the previous candidate, Lee Gyun-yong, was voted down by the opposition-controlled National Assembly. The position of Chief Justice has been vacant for over 2 months. In the Middle East, Israeli soldiers are rapidly advancing into southern Gaza. As their defense chief vows, his forces will stay in Gaza until all Hamas infrastructure is destroyed. Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
The Israeli military, which has taken control of most of the northern part of the Gaza Strip, is now quickly formalizing its ground offensives in the southern region. According to the AFP on Monday, dozens of Israeli tanks and heavy equipment were observed entering the area near Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip on several occasions. Several witnesses in southern Gaza also told AFP that they've seen tanks and other armored vehicles moving towards southern Gaza, showing Israel is set to begin a full-fledged offensive in the region. In a statement released by Israel's defense ministry, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said Monday that the Israeli army will storm the entirety of Gaza City and the northern part of the Gaza Strip until all Hamas infrastructure is completely destroyed. He also said that the military will remain in Gaza until all Hamas infrastructure is eliminated, and went on to say that the military has begun to work in the south of the Gaza Strip. In the meantime, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said he was surprised by the resumption of hostilities between Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip and urged both sides to respect their obligations to comply with international humanitarian law. Guterres also expressed concern that people in Gaza had nowhere safe to go and appealed to Israel to avoid further action that worsens the already catastrophic humanitarian situation in the region. He added that civilians and civilian infrastructure, including medical staff, journalists, and UN personnel, must be protected at all times. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Extreme weather conditions are being witnessed in different parts of the world. Moscow has recently seen a record-breaking amount of snowfall in more than 140 years, while East Africa has been hit by heavy rains. Cho Hee-dae tells us more.
Temperatures in parts of Siberia plummeted to minus 56 degrees Celsius on Monday. Forecasters in the region said temperatures would feel like more than minus 60 given the wind and humidity, and that they could fall further overnight. Temperatures of minus 50 have become less common in recent years because of climate change, with permafrost showing increasing signs of thawing. In the Russian capital, some of the biggest snowfall ever seen blanketed the city, causing disruption both on the roads and to flights. According to city officials on Monday, at least 54 flights were delayed and 5 more were canceled at Moscow's 3 largest airports. Snow depth on Monday exceeded 40 centimeters, marking a level unseen in 73 years. Authorities deployed over 135,000 people and around 8,000 pieces of equipment to clear up the snow. According to the Russian Hydrometeorological Center, Moscow on Sunday posted a record snowfall of 10.7 millimeters in 12 hours. That marks the highest amount of snowfall recorded in the center's 145 years of weather observation. Temperatures in Moscow and the region around the capital were forecast to fall to about minus 20 later this week. Meanwhile, Eastern Africa has been hit by unexpected floods. In Tanzania, heavy rain on Saturday was followed by landslides which have claimed at least 63 lives. In Kenya, at the end of November, 120 people lost their lives due to the heaviest rainfall in a century, while in Somalia, over 100 people were killed because of adverse weather conditions. The eastern part of Africa has been grappling with severe drought in recent years, but starting in October, heavy rain and floods attributed to the El Niño phenomenon have caused widespread disasters. 정은주, Arirang News.
The UK's popular music magazine, National Music Express, published the 50 best songs of 2023 on Monday, and K-pop group NewJeans placed second with the song Super Shy. NewJeans charted the highest among Korean artists, with the song being praised for making 2.5 minutes feel like the giddiest pop ride of your life. Other Korean artists on the list included DJ and producer Peggy Goo, K-pop girl groups LE SSERAFIM and G-Idol, alongside boy band NCT's subunit Do Jae-jung. American singer-songwriter Lana Del Rey topped the list with her song A&W.
The weather is relatively mild for December. For Seoul tomorrow, highs will be topping out at 10 degrees Celsius for the daytime, far exceeding the previous year's temperature by 5 degrees. Temperatures will rise a little more. Much warmer winter conditions are expected to continue throughout this week. However, fine dust will raise its head. Smoke from overseas will flow in overnight, and the concentration of fine dust and ultrafine dust in most parts of the country will increase tomorrow. The ultrafine dust is very harmful to respiratory health. Please make sure to wear ultrafine dust masks. Tomorrow, winter rain with thunderstorms and gusty winds are in the forecast nationwide from the afternoon to overnight. Morning temperatures in Seoul will start off at 5 degrees Celsius. Highs in Seoul will get up to 10 degrees, Daejeon and Daegu 13 degrees, Gyeongju and Busan 16 degrees Celsius. After the rainfall, the weather will get warmer. Seoul will see its highs at 15 degrees later this week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. That is News Center for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.
This winter, what are other things that make us excited, like white snow? Our own places of sweet memories. A thrill that frees your mind. Splash back in history. A mouthful of happiness. Winter excites us. Mokpo.
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive,
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?
I'm live.
저를 도와주시는 분들이
저희와 함께 해줄 수 있는 세션분들
아무리 봐도 없지. 펜션 같은데 아니라고 아무도 안 하는 거고.
좋아요.
아주 근본적인 데부터 시작합니다. 어떻게 왔으면서 무엇인가부터 고민하면 시작하거든요. 찍기 전에까지 작업이 몇 달씩도 걸리기도 합니다. 철학적 메시지라든지 상징적 의미들이 함축성 있는 이야기를 담아주기 위해서 저는 대한민국의 사진가 김용호입니다.
Hello everyone, it's Tuesday and you're watching Within the Frame. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. Various industrial sectors are suffering from chronic labor shortages, and it's a situation that's only expected to worsen with the country's record low fertility rate. To alleviate such labor shortages, the government decided to expand the foreign employment permit quotas for 2024, letting a record high number of 165,000 E9 visa foreign workers enter the country. Not just that, the country is planning to have around 100 foreign nannies work in households to help with childcare, a move that is aimed at boosting the low birth rate. What are some of the concerns experts have for such policies, and how should South Korea brace itself for a multiracial and multicultural society? For this, we welcome Professor Song Soo-young from Chungang University. Welcome, Professor Song.
Yeah, good evening to you. Thank you for having me.
And we also have Professor Choi Hyun-sun from Myeongju University. Welcome to the show, Professor Choi.
Hello, thank you for having me.
All right, first question to our Professor Song. The OECD recently downwardly revised South Korea's economic growth rate to be 1.4% this year. And experts say one of the main reasons behind such a revision is a decrease in the workforce due to population decline. What effect is the low fertility rate expected to have economically?
Yeah, evidently, low fertility rate has a long-term negative effect on the labor force in light of the supply and not only the productivity and also the burden of the youngsters, younger generations to take care of the older generation, as long as the country is pursuing that the welfare state for the people. So to that regard, the economic recent downturn, which had shown the 1.4% of GDP growth rate for this year 2023, and the next year is a little bit better, 2.4% or something around that numbers, is that reflects not just actually that is just short-term some bad performance of Korean economy, not because of the fertility rate. However, fertility rate has definitely effect on some generation. So usually generation period is measured at 30 years. Therefore, that is my concern. But current bad performance in Korean economy is, I don't think it's because of the some fertility rate.
Oh, all right, I see. Well, Professor Choi, even though the fertility rate, the low fertility rate is not the only reason for the lowered, productivity, South Korea decided to bring in an all-time high of 165,000 non-professional migrant workers next year under the employment permit system. First of all, what is this system about, and how many years will foreign workers arriving here on this employment visa be able to stay?
Korea has used the employment permit system for the professional and non-professional foreign workers. Especially non-professional worker, we need in the many diverse industry, because maybe the labor shortage is hitting hard to many industry in our society. So there are big momentum. We have used the employment system already, but we changed 2024. They can stay about maybe maximum is 10 years. Now we have used maybe a 3-year contract, 3-year visa system, and then if we extend is 4 years and 10 months, and if the foreign workers go back to their country and come back again, they can use another 4 and 10 months, something like that. But we dramatically change it. We increase the number of the visa quota. At the same time, they can stay till the maximum is about 10 years.
All right, I see. So E9 visa is so-called the non-professional employment visa, I guess. Now, Professor Song, how many foreign workers with that visa will be allocated to each different industry or sector? I mean, I heard migrant workers will also be able to work in restaurants, the mining and forestry sectors as well.
Yeah, recently, because our economy is in the recovery stage from coronavirus pandemic, so the pent-up demand, particularly in the service industry, has been very popular. But labor supply is definitely fall short of the in order to maintain some service at the level of the which used to be served in the before the outbreak of coronavirus. Therefore, definitely they need, our economy needs some the labor forces which could be deployed for some sectors such as restaurant, mining, or forestry and the agriculture. Particularly, I have seen that in the newspaper that some Vietnamese workers, she has earned 5 times more than what she has earned in the Vietnam, particularly for the harvest of the orange and tangerine in the Jeju Island. So that's because we fall short of the, particularly in the rural area, the agricultural sector, the age, the people of the age who should work has been getting old, and then short supply of some relatively young labor forces. To that regard, we need some very substantial number of the labor forces to help the economy to work, and also as well as some relatively lower wage rate for those people. So that is in order to recover our economy right now, and also maintain the current level of the price at some food and industry and the service industry. It is necessary, I think.
All right, so foreign workers will be allocated to those sectors in need. Now, Professor Song, one more question. Since we know basic details of the plan now, I'd like to tap on some concerns. So some say such expansion to those eligible for a E9 visa is just a quick fix rather than a long-term solution, as you have earlier mentioned, the job vacancies that foreigners are expected to fill are mostly in areas where working conditions are challenging. What is your view on this?
When the working condition is challenging and difficult, it means that because of the risk premium, the wage should be high. Then when we import some labor forces from the foreign countries, then the employer could save their wage cost, because the employee from foreign countries, they would like to receive relatively lower than the current the labor forces in Korea, domestic labor forces wage. So this is a kind of the both win-win situation. And as I mentioned earlier in the first question about, I'm sorry, that our fertility rate has been in the third quarter of 2023 is only 0.7 replacement rate. So that is really, I'm sorry, that is quite low, and which means that the wage or labor wage should be increased very high. So, and because of the shortage, the labor wage. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay, Professor.
I need to clear the throat. Okay.
Are you okay, Professor Song?
Yeah.
All right. Can we continue?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So my view on this one is that this is, as you mentioned earlier, this must be a temporary one. But in order to overcome this condition properly, and what I think of the option to recover the economy is to make the economy run again and make the economy to grow. So I need the fiscal policy, expansionary fiscal policy is definitely needed to make the economy run again.
All right, I see. So it's definitely a win-win situation for both the foreign workers and the Korean economy, but we still need fiscal policy to boost the economy, as our Professor Song said. All right, now, Professor Che, another concern is that this system could result in more undocumented and unregistered foreign workers, as many E9 visa holders could violate the legitimate contracts and leave the initially registered workplaces to find a new job with better pay. How should this be tackled?
I think that we need maybe two-sided job. As Professor Song already talking about maybe the condition, the working conditions in the field, but at the same time, we have a regulation about if Korean employer break some conditions, maybe our foreign employee can change their place to work. For example, if they pay less, which is as contracted already, but they pay less, 30%, they can change to another place, and the time of the work, like 20% more work, or they change the time of working time change, something like that. That also sometimes some bad treatment, such as sexual harassment. Then our foreign workers can be protected. They can change their place to work. But the problem, sometimes the foreign workers intentionally, they change the place for the better payment, better pay, which is a big problem. But we need to work together. Government cannot capture all these violations, so we need working together. We need making collaboration system with. Actually, there are some unions, workers' unions, and the foreign workers' unions, and there are many centers and churches to help the foreign workers. We should work together. It is another society. We must prepare future multicultural society. That means maybe the violation of some of our foreign workers, maybe our police and maybe other system can work, but many or some more civil society is working together. That is maybe the only way. So one thing is employer should maybe keep their regulations. Also, we should working together, some kind of collaboration system.
All right, I see. So cooperation and collaboration between the government and foreign workers unions or centers that protect or support foreign workers would be needed to prevent them from, leaving the initial workplaces. Professor Che, one more question. With the record high number of foreigners expected to come, more staff would also be needed at the Labor Ministry to deal with the, administrative process, and we would also need more support for centers established for foreign workers as well. But I heard that level of support is not planned for now. If that's the case, how should this be dealt with?
I think that this is maybe related to the previous question about maybe we need some governance system, because we don't have almighty government. Maybe we should give up about the government can do everything. Maybe our industry is suffer from the labor shortage, and then our birth rate is so low, so there is no choice. We must invite many foreign workers to our society. Then again, we should maybe thinking about some governance among the many stakeholders. Maybe the foreign workers is not only the workers in our society, they are a member of our society. If we accept that, then we can maybe better performance in our economy. But if not, there are increasing of the violation and crime. So I think in terms of that, I think so our system is not yet ready. So I think the government side, Ministry of the Employment and Labor, should more focus about this governance collaboration among the unions and then the churches, centers to help them, and the same time government organization. This is the only way we can prepare for the future multicultural society. And I think not yet ready, but I hope that we work very soon.
All right, so we should not entirely depend on the government to do all of the work, but instead we need to come up with proper governance systems so that all the stakeholders could, cooperate with each other. I see. Now, Professor Song, sometimes it is better to look at overseas examples. So other countries, such as Germany, have been changing their labor policies to let more foreign workers enter as they were experiencing decreased productivity. Could you tell us other cases South Korea could refer to?
Particularly because Germany has been exemplified, and they projected the real GDP growth rate for the Germany year of 2023 is negative 0.5%, whereas the consumer price inflation has reached 6.3%. So which means that even nominal GDP growth rate is just a 5.8 percentage points for the Germany. So, which is really the worst among the advanced countries in Europe, such as in comparison with the France and even Italy or some Britain. The Germany has suffered so much from the cut from some natural gas import from Russia. And the German economy has been hit so severely because of the war between Russia and Ukraine. To that regards, Germany would like to, in order to keep supplying some service industry, and the service that's why they allow the foreign workers to come into Germany. And the primary reason is basically the foreign workers imported to Germany maybe require a little bit lower wage than the domestic labor forces in Germany. So to that regard, we would like to, in South Korea, we would like to make use of these foreign workers, particularly from the Southeast Asian countries, because the relative wage in Southeast Asian countries is quite low. And also, currently, in South Korea would like to offer some level of some minimum wage, at least, which is equivalent to the level of the domestic workers. So that is a very attractive wage for the foreign workers from particularly Southeast Asian countries. But however, I have heard that some government from Southeast Asian countries, they have they are concerned about the status of the foreign workers in South Korea because of the South Korea government has cut the budget for the to support and supply provided some administrative service to the foreign workers who is not at all well accustomed to some Korean language, and so they need some legal protection. So to that regard, that is main primary concern. Otherwise, there is a positive effect for the South Korean economy and also South Asian workforces.
All right, win-win situation for both of us. All right, now shifting gears a little bit here. Professor Che, we have been talking about foreign workers in industries, but not just that. As part of the government's plan to ease child care burden for parents and boost the country's low fertility rate, a total of 100 foreigners will work within households starting in December. What are the details of the scheme?
I think that the Korean government, especially I think that the Seoul metropolitan city, maybe some initiate, then some congressmen agreed, and the government maybe agreed, and we now try to work by the December of this year, maybe 100, maybe the child care worker we try to invite. But I'm not sure. The reason why we do this is maybe we try to getting better the lowest birth rate, such as like 0.78 right now. Maybe we invite 100 nanny and the child care helper, or we invite 100,000 maybe nanny and the child care helper. I don't think that related to maybe our birth rate. So I'm not sure why we should do this. Also, there are benchmarking with Singapore and Hong Kong, but they didn't show any the increase of the birth rate in their some 7 years history, something like that. But probably we have a shortage of labor, especially in the maybe household, because now the wife and husband working together. So probably we need this system. But maybe government-driven system right now, government decide the money, like how much pay, like a wage, and second is they decide the visa, they decide the number. So where is the market? Where is the supply and demand? Probably if we want to make a sustainable system like this, and we should plan to how to work with the market system. Maybe 100 nanny we can use with the government driven. But in the later, maybe we should we want to invite 100,000 nanny, then the government cannot. So we must realize government can work with the society, and then really there is supply and demand exist.
All right, I see. It seems the city and the government have to consider many things so that this policy could properly work. Now, we are running out of time, but I'd like to ask this last question to our Professor Song. So overall, South Korea is set to become a multiracial society in 2024 as the percentage of foreign residents reaching 5.1% according to the OECD report. What kind of long-term policies should the government come up with to properly embrace the multicultural society?
Yeah, as we become a multi-ethnic society, which means that we must be prepared to accept some immigration from foreign countries. So what is necessary step to overcome the difficulties or some potential conflict between the domestic and the foreign workers would be the government should pay attention to not only to solve the cultural conflict and help the foreign workers to settle down in Korea successfully and smoothly without much conflict. And finally, I would like to say, what is the primary reason to accept some foreign helpers or nannies or foreign workers in our economy? The reason is our fertility rate and birth rate is very low, and we worry about some labor force shortage in the future in 30 years. So according to some experience for the foreign countries which have suffered a decline in birth rate, in order to overcome, we need some housing service and also some female workers' gender equality that should be addressed, and then make the economy very favorable for the female workers to have job opportunity as well as maintain the career and house life together. To that regard, we need to redefine the definition of the family and the fiscal policy to support female and children, and also housing services such as collective housing or some cheap supply of the house. All those should be necessary, indispensable policies to be taken right away in order to solve the long-term problem of the low fertility rate.
All right. Well, thank you, Professor Song, for your great advice. Now, unfortunately, this is all the time we have for today's edition. Thank you, Professor Song and Professor Che, for your time and insights. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Sorry for my hiccup.
It's okay. Thank you. All right. That's all for Within the Frame tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with more in-depth stories. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.